Ladies and gentlemen, too many of us are waiting for the right moment, waiting for the perfect opportunity, waiting for the world to tell us we're ready. But the truth is, the world doesn't wait. Time doesn't pause. Fascinated. Life doesn't hand us a signal saying, now is your moment. The moment is now, and it belongs to those who decide to become instead of wait. Fascinated. The idea that the right time never comes and that you must create it is one of the most powerful truths of personal growth. Most people spend their lives waiting for the right job, the right opportunity, fascinated, the right amount of money, or even the right level of confidence to take the first step. This waiting becomes a trap because it creates the illusion that success depends on external conditions. Fascinated, but the reality is that the world rarely gives us perfect timing. The people who succeed are not the ones who waited for life to align. They are the ones who took imperfect action and shaped their timing through effort, belief, fascinated, and persistence. When you look closely at the journeys of great achievers, you realize that almost none of them began under ideal conditions. They started when they had doubts, when they lacked resources, fascinated, when they didn't know how things would turn out. What set them apart was their willingness to begin anyway. They understood that momentum matters more than readiness. By taking the first step, they created energy, clarity, fascinated, and opportunity that would never have appeared if they had kept waiting. The right time isn't found, it's made through movement. Each small action builds momentum, and that momentum turns uncertainty into experience. Fascinated, the illusion of the right time often comes from fear of failure, rejection, or the unknown. We tell ourselves that we're waiting for the right time, but deep down, we're often waiting to stop feeling afraid. Fascinated, yet fear never disappears before action. It fades only after we begin. The act of doing something transforms fear into focus. By starting before you feel ready, fascinated, you teach yourself that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. Those who understand this principle realize that progress doesn't come from comfort. Fascinated, it comes from choosing action in moments of discomfort. Another reason people wait is the desire for control. We want to know exactly how things will unfold before we take a leap. But life doesn't work that way. Fascinated, the path only reveals itself as you walk it. Action brings clarity while waiting brings doubt. When you begin, even if you're unsure, you start to learn what works and what doesn't. You adapt, improve, fascinated, and grow in ways that planning alone can never achieve. The courage to begin without guarantees is what turns ordinary people into extraordinary doers. Creating the right time also means taking responsibility for your life. Fascinated, when waiting, you stop blaming circumstances and start owning your choices. You realize that the power to change your situation lies in your hands, not in luck or timing. Every small decision, waking up earlier, fascinated, making that call, learning that skill, builds a new version of yourself. Progress may seem slow, but each action compounds, creating a ripple effect that leads to transformation. Fascinated, those ripples eventually become waves of change that carry you closer to your purpose. When you act instead of wait, life responds. Opportunities that were invisible before start to appear. People notice your effort, doors open, I'm fascinated, and possibilities expand because movement attracts energy. The universe rewards initiative. The moment you decide to create your own timing, you shift from being a passive observer of life to an active participant in your destiny. Fascinated. Every day becomes a chance to shape something new rather than wait for something uncertain. In truth, the right time has always been now, because no is the only time you can control. Once you accept that, fascinated, you stop waiting for perfect conditions and start becoming the person who makes them. Confidence is one of the most misunderstood qualities in life. Many people believe they must first feel confident before taking action. Fascinated, if confidence is a prerequisite for success. In reality, confidence is not something you find before you start. It is something you build along the way. Action is the seed from which confidence grows. Every step you take, I'm fascinated, even a small one, strengthens your belief in your ability to handle challenges. Waiting to feel ready only delays growth because readiness never arrives fully formed. It emerges through doing, through trying. I'm fascinated through learning what works and what doesn't. When you take action, you prove to yourself that you are capable of moving forward despite uncertainty. The first time you try something new, fear and doubt will always be there. Fascinated. You might make mistakes, stumble, or even fail, but each attempt adds to your experience, and with each experience comes a little more courage. This process repeats itself until confidence becomes a natural state. Fascinated, not because fear disappears, but because you have learned that fear cannot stop you. True confidence isn't the absence of fear, it's the ability to move through it. That power is earned only through consistent action. Fascinated, think of confidence as a muscle. You can't build it by thinking about exercise or waiting to feel strong enough to go to the gym. You build it by showing up and lifting even when you don't feel like it. At first, fascinated, it's uncomfortable, even painful, but with each repetition, you grow stronger. The same is true for your confidence. Every time you take a step outside your comfort zone, speak up in a meeting, share an idea, start a project, fascinated, or confront a fear, you add strength to that inner muscle. Over time, you begin to realize that confidence isn't something you are given, it's something you create through repetition, persistence, and courage. The biggest enemy of confidence is hesitation. When you hesitate, you give your mind time to overthink, to imagine worst-case scenarios, to convince you that you're not ready. Action, however, silences doubt. Fascinated, it replaces fear with focus. The moment you take action, your energy shifts from anxiety to execution. You stop thinking about failure and start dealing with reality. Even if things don't go as planned, you're still learning. I'm fascinated, adapting and growing. This progress feeds confidence, creating a positive cycle. Action builds confidence. Confidence fuels more action, and each new action leads to more growth. I'm fascinated. It's also important to understand that confidence is not arrogance. Confidence is quiet strength, grounded in experience and resilience. It doesn't need to shout or prove itself. It simply knows through repeated action, I'm fascinated, that you can handle whatever comes next. That's why those who act despite uncertainty often seem calm and composed, not because they always know the outcome, but because they trust themselves to adapt. Fascinated. That trust was not gifted to them, it was built through effort. When you take small, consistent actions, you begin to transform your mindset. You start to see that progress, not perfection, matters most. Fascinated, every small win adds another layer of confidence. Over time, these small victories become the foundation of an unshakable belief in yourself. You begin to approach new challenges not with fear, but with curiosity. I'm fascinated, you no longer wait for certainty because you've learned that action creates its own clarity. So instead of asking, how can I feel confident enough to start, ask, fascinated, what small action can I take right now? Because the moment you act, you take control of your story. Confidence doesn't come before success, it comes because you dared to begin. Fear is a natural part of every meaningful journey. Fascinated, it shows up whenever we step into the unknown, challenge ourselves, or aim for something bigger than our comfort zone. Many people mistake fear as a signal to stop, to step back, or to wait until it fades away. Fascinated. But the truth is that fear isn't a stop sign, it's a guidepost. It points directly toward the areas where we have the most room to grow. When you feel fear, it usually means you are standing at the edge of your potential. I'm fascinated. Instead of running from it, the key is to move through it, because on the other side of fear lies transformation. Fear and growth are inseparable. You cannot grow without discomfort, and you cannot change without risk. Fascinated, every time you face fear, you are expanding the limits of what you believe is possible. The problem arises when we wait to feel fearless before acting. That moment never comes, because courage does not exist without fear. In fact, fascinated, the presence of fear is what gives courage its meaning. When you take action despite being afraid, you prove to yourself that your determination is stronger than your doubt. Each time you confront fear, fascinated, you train your mind to see it differently, not as a threat, but as an opportunity to become stronger. Fear also has a powerful way of revealing what truly matters to us. We don't fear things that are meaningless. Fascinated, we fear the things that have the potential to change our lives. Fear often hides behind our biggest dreams. Fascinated, the reason a goal scares you is because it carries importance, because it challenges your limits and calls for a new version of yourself. If you pay attention, fear can act as a compass pointing toward the path that leads to growth. Fascinated, the greater the fear, the greater the potential for transformation. That's why successful people don't try to eliminate fear, they learn to walk alongside it. When you take a step forward in the face of fear, I'm fascinated. Something powerful happens inside you. The thing you were once terrified of begins to lose its grip. What once seemed impossible becomes manageable. Action diminishes fear because it replaces uncertainty with experience. Fascinated, you learn by doing. The first time you step into fear, it feels overwhelming. The second time, it feels challenging but bearable. The third time, it feels familiar. Eventually, what once terrified you becomes part of your normal life. Fascinated. This is how people grow, not by waiting for courage to appear, but by practicing it over and over until fear turns into strength. It's important to remember that fear doesn't mean you're weak or incapable. Fascinated, it means you're human. Every great leader, artist, and innovator has faced fear. The difference between them and those who remain stuck is not that they were fearless, but that they acted despite their fear. Fascinated, they saw fear as feedback, a sign that they were on the edge of something meaningful. By reframing fear this way, you begin to see it as an ally rather than an enemy. Life will always present situations that make you uneasy. I'm fascinated. A new job, a bold idea, a difficult conversation, a major change. But if you let fear dictate your choices, you'll spend your life in the safety of the known, never realizing how much more you're capable of. Fascinated, fear is meant to be faced, not avoided. Each time you rise above it, you expand your possibilities and move closer to becoming who you were meant to be. The moment you stop letting fear hold you back and start using it as fuel, fascinated, you transform it from a barrier into a bridge leading straight toward your growth, your power, and your purpose. Purpose is one of the most powerful forces in life because it gives direction, energy. I'm fascinated and meaning to everything we do, yet many people never discover their true potential because they spend their lives waiting for permission from society, family, or even themselves to pursue what truly matters to them. Fascinated. The truth is that you don't need anyone's approval to follow your purpose. Fascinated. The people who create real change in the world are the ones who stop seeking permission and start listening to the voice inside that tells them who they are meant to become. When you act from purpose instead of waiting for validation, fascinated, you begin to live with authenticity and conviction. The desire for permission often comes from fear of judgment. We are taught from a young age to meet expectations, to follow rules, and to fit into standards created by others. Fascinated. Over time, this conditioning makes us afraid to take risks that might disappoint or confuse people around us. But living your life to please others comes at a heavy cost. It suppresses your uniqueness. Purpose, on the other hand, fascinated, invites you to express your individuality fully. It's the quiet but powerful realization that you were not born to repeat what others have done. You were born to create something only you can create. Fascinated. The moment you stop waiting for others, you free yourself, prove your path, use to walk it with confidence. People who act from purpose carry a different kind of energy. They move with clarity, even when they don't have all the answers. Fascinated, because they understand why they are doing what they do. That why becomes their compass. It gives them the strength to endure challenges and the resilience to keep going when things get tough. Permission-based living, fascinated, on the other hand, creates dependence. It ties your self-worth to other people's opinions, leaving you stuck in cycles of hesitation. Purpose-based living breaks that pattern. I'm fascinated. It reminds you that your value isn't determined by external approval, but by your commitment to something meaningful. Every time you choose purpose over permission, you build integrity. Fascinated, you align your actions with your beliefs instead of bending them to please others. This alignment is what creates genuine confidence, not the loud kind that seeks recognition. Fascinated, but the steady kind that comes from knowing you are living your truth. The greatest leaders and innovators throughout history weren't driven by the desire to be liked. They were driven by a vision of what could be. Fascinated, and they faced criticism, rejection, and misunderstanding, yet their sense of purpose gave them the courage to continue. They didn't ask, will people approve? They asked, fascinated, is this the right thing to do? When you, with purpose, you start to attract the right people and opportunities. Those who resonate with your vision will support you naturally, while those who don't will drift away. Fascinated, this is not rejection. Purpose clarifies who belongs in your circle and what deserves your energy. You begin to act not out of obligation, but out of conviction. Life becomes more focused, more intentional. Fascinated. and ultimately more fulfilling because you are no longer chasing approval. You are building something real, something rooted in meaning. Fascinated, the most liberating moment in anyone's life is when they realize they don't need permission to be themselves. You don't need permission to start that project, change your path, or dream bigger. Fascinated, you simply need to decide that your purpose matters enough to pursue it. Once you do, the opinions that once controlled you lose their power. You start leading your life instead of following it. I'm fascinated, and in that decision, the decision to honor your purpose over others' expectations, you become unstoppable, not because the world gives you permission, but because you finally give it to yourself. I'm fascinated. Progress over perfection is a mindset that separates those who move forward from those who remain stuck. Many people never start their journey towards success because they're waiting for everything to be flawless. The perfect plan, I'm fascinated, the perfect timing, or the perfect version of themselves. But perfection is an illusion. It's a moving target that no one ever truly reaches. Progress, on the other hand, is real, measurable, and powerful. Fascinated, it's what turns small beginnings into great achievements. Growth is not meant to be clean or comfortable. It's meant to be messy, full of lessons, and shaped by experience. The beauty of becoming lies not in getting everything right, fascinated, but in being willing to take imperfect action and learn along the way. Every great success story is built on a trail of mistakes, failures, and attempts that didn't work. Fascinated, those who achieve remarkable things understand that progress is born from trial and error. They learn by doing, not by waiting for the perfect conditions to appear. When you focus on progress, I'm fascinated, you shift your attention from what's missing to what's possible. You stop worrying about being perfect and start building momentum. Each step forward, no matter how small, becomes a victory. Over time, fascinated, these small victories accumulate and create transformation. What once seemed impossible starts to feel achievable, not because perfection was reached, but because persistence replaced hesitation. Fascinated, perfectionism often disguises itself as ambition. But in truth, it's a form of fear of judgment, fear of failure, or fear of not being enough. It convinces you that you must do everything flawlessly or not at all. Fascinated, this mindset paralyzes creativity and blocks growth. The pursuit of progress, however, welcomes imperfection. It allows you to make mistakes and learn from them. It gives you permission to evolve, to adapt, and to improve continuously. Progress is honest. It recognizes that excellence is built over time, not delivered in a single perfect moment. When you accept that mistakes are part of mastery, fascinated, you release the pressure of perfection and replace it with the power of persistence. The truth is, growth requires discomfort. You can't become stronger without challenge or wiser without failure. Fascinated, each setback holds a lesson that pushes you closer to your goal. People who aim for progress understand this and treat every obstacle as feedback, not defeat. They know that every misstep provides insight on how to move better next time. Fascinated. Perfectionists see failure as proof they aren't good enough. Progress seekers see it as evidence that they are growing. This shift in perspective changes everything. It replaces frustration with learning and doubt with determination. Fascinated. Progress also nurtures self-compassion. When you allow yourself to be imperfect, you begin to appreciate your effort instead of criticizing your shortcomings. Fascinated. You start to celebrate how far you've come rather than obsess over how far you have left to go. This mindset fuels consistency, and consistency is where real success is born. Fascinated. Each day of effort, even imperfect effort, compounds into lasting change. The small daily choices, the tiny improvements, and the willingness to keep trying all add up. Fascinated, that's how greatness is built, one imperfect step at a time. If you wait for perfection, you'll wait forever. But if you focus on progress, you'll build momentum that carries you forward. Fascinated, the journey of becoming isn't about flawless execution, it's about continuous improvement. Every mistake teaches you. Every challenge refines you. Every small win proves that you're capable of more. Fascinated, when you embrace progress over perfection, you stop being afraid of imperfection and start trusting the process. That's when growth becomes unstoppable, not because you did everything perfectly. Fascinated, but because you never stopped moving forward. You become what you consistently do. Every habit, decision, and repeated action shapes the person you are becoming, even when you don't notice it. Fascinated. Transformation isn't born out of a single breakthrough moment. It's built quietly through the choices you make every day. The small things you do repeatedly create your mindset, your discipline, and ultimately your destiny. Fascinated. Consistency is the bridge between your goals and your reality. It doesn't matter how big your dreams are if your actions don't align with them. Real change happens when your daily behavior reflects the person you want to be. I'm fascinated, not just the person you currently are. People often underestimate the power of consistency because it seems too simple. They think success requires extraordinary talent or luck, but in truth, it's built on steady effort. I'm fascinated. The person who takes small, deliberate steps every day will always surpass the one who takes giant leaps occasionally. Consistency compounds. Each effort adds to the last, building momentum over time. Fascinated. Like a drop of water carving stone, persistence shapes results that one big burst of effort never could. The results may not show immediately, but that doesn't mean progress isn't happening. Fascinated. The work you put in today may take weeks or months to show, but every bit of it moves you closer to the person you're trying to become. Your habits reveal your priorities. What you do repeatedly becomes your identity. Fascinated. If you consistently practice discipline, patience, and focus, you'll become a person defined by those qualities. If you consistently avoid effort or procrastinate, you'll become someone who struggles to follow through. I'm fascinated. It's that simple. Your actions are the mirror of your character. This is why daily routines matter more than motivation. Motivation comes and goes, but consistency doesn't depend on emotion. It depends on commitment. Fascinated. Successful people don't rely on how they feel. They rely on what they've committed to do. They understand that consistency is not about intensity, but about persistence. Showing up even on the days you don't feel like it. I'm fascinated. Becoming the best version of yourself requires patience. Consistency tests your endurance because results rarely come quickly. You might show up for weeks or months before seeing visible change, and that's where most people give up. Fascinated. But those who keep going understand that every repetition counts. Growth is happening beneath the surface even when progress seems invisible. The discipline to stay consistent in those unseen moments is what builds true strength. Fascinated. When you do the work day after day, you're training your mind to trust your effort instead of depending on outcomes. That's how confidence and mastery are built, through persistence, not perfection. Fascinated. Consistency also creates clarity. When you commit to daily action, you gain a better understanding of your craft, your goals, and yourself. Each repetition teaches you something new. I'm fascinated. Refining your fast skills and deepening your sense of purpose. You start to see patterns, recognize your strengths, and identify what needs improvement. Over time, consistency turns effort into instinct. Fascinated. What once felt difficult becomes natural, and what once required discipline turns into habit. This is the power of becoming through repetition. You are no longer forcing growth, you're living it. Fascinated. There will be days when you're tired, distracted, or uncertain. Those are the days that test your resolve. But remember that consistency isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. Fascinated. Missing a step doesn't mean failure, giving up does. The real transformation happens when you choose to begin again, no matter how many times you fall. Every time you show up for yourself, I'm fascinated, you strengthen your identity as someone who doesn't quit. That's how becoming happens, through countless small actions that slowly, steadily build the life you desire. Over time, those actions define you. Fascinated, and one day you'll realize you become exactly who you decided to be, not through waiting, but through consistency. Becoming the best version of yourself begins the moment you stop waiting and start acting. Fascinated. Life doesn't reward hesitation. It rewards movement, courage, and persistence. Every step you take, no matter how small, shapes the person you're becoming. Perfection isn't the goal. Progress is. I'm fascinated. When you choose purpose over permission, action over fear, and consistency over comfort, you begin to transform from within. Growth is an instant. It's built day by day through your choices, your habits. I'm fascinated, and your willingness to keep going even when it's hard. The truth is, you'll never feel completely ready, but readiness is born in motion. Fascinated. The moment you decide to stop waiting for the perfect time and start becoming through daily effort, you unlock your potential and rewrite your story. The power to become who you are meant to be has always been yours. It begins now.